Jan Kubelik was a Czech violinist and composer. He was born on the 5th of July 1880 and he died on the 5th of December 1940. Before Heifetz burst on the scene, he was a famous and very well paid artist. But with the revolution in violin art that Heifetz brought about, he became less relevant as time went on. In the words of Henry Roth, the world of violin art simply passed him by. But nevertheless, he's a very important person to consider in the history of violin playing. And Henry Roth states on page 60 of his book, Violin Virtuosos, that the world was ripe for the spiritual revival of the Paganini legend. It materialized in the person of a 20-year-old Czech, Jan Kubelik, who took his audiences by storm and amassed more money from his concerts than any violinist since Paganini, with the possible exception of Ole Bull, up to that time. Let's start with a quick timeline of Jan Kubelik's life. In 1880 he was born in Mychle near Prague. In 1892 he entered the Prague Conservatoire. In 1898 he graduated and gave his Vienna debut. In 1900 his London debut took place. In 1901 his first American tour commenced. In 1902 he received the Royal Philharmonic Society Gold Medal. In 1903 he got married and moved his main home to Hungary. In 1905 he won the Paganini Medal. In 1915 he took a 5-year sabbatical to compose. In 1939 he gives the first of 10 60th birthday concerts in Prague, and in 1940 he died in Prague. Let's go through his biography. He was born in Mychle, now part of Prague, on July 5th, 1880, of Czech parents. His father, who was a gardener by occupation, was also an amateur violinist, and he taught his 2 sons the violin. After discovering the talent of Jan, who was aged 5 at the time, he then arranged for him to study with a number of different teachers, each for 1 year. Karel Weber, Karel Ondřiček, and also F. Sersny. Age 8, Jenik, as his nickname was, studied at the Prague Conservatory with Otakar Ševčík, of whose technique he became the most famous representative. Ševčík was his real teacher. He taught Kubelik for 6 years. Although I've mentioned it was aged 8, the Strad magazine actually states that he joined the conservatory aged 12, so that may be the correct age. Ševčík's pupils were said to number into the thousands and included Erika Marini, Ephraim Zimbalist, After Hour, Franz Ondřiček, Jaroslav Kočian, Mary Hall, and Leonora Jackson. As a child, Jan Kubelik used to practice 10 to 12 hours a day, and sometimes his fingers would actually start to bleed. Kubelik made his first public appearance at age 8, playing a Vieuxtemps concerto and some Wieniawski pieces. At 10, he was playing Berlioz's G major concerto and a Mildner concert study to a professional standard. He also studied composition with Joseph Forster, Karel Knittel and Karel Stecker. While a student, he dazzled his teachers with the Brahms concerto, and the conservatoire director Antonin Benevitz described him as colossal, phenomenal. He graduated from the Prague Conservatoire on the 7th of July 1898 with the Paganini Wilhelm D major concerto, tossing off the notorious Saure cadenza and winning the sobriquet the second Paganini. After 1898, he toured as a soloist, soon becoming renowned for his great virtuosity and flawless intonation and his very full and noble tone. At 18, he played the Brahms concerto with his own cadenzas, and the Paganini Concerto No. 1. He would go on to make his reputation with Paganini's music. After great success following his debut in Vienna and in London, where he first appeared at a Hans Richter concert in 1900, Kubelik toured in the United States in 1901 for the first time, the first of many. He made his first appearance for the Royal Philharmonic Society in London in the season of 1901 to 1902, and in 1902 was awarded the Society's Gold Medal, in succession to Eugene Issei. In 1902, Jan Kubelik brought the Czech Philharmonic Orchestra to London, having assisted it financially in the previous year. He apparently would practice incessantly on the day of a concert, even to the point of having aching fingers, playing Sevcik studies, and Henry Roth states that this worked to cancel out his musical spontaneity. Roth states that his gymnastic feats conquered the audiences, if not the critics, of Vienna, Budapest, Paris and London. During an Italian tour, he was awarded the Order of St. Gregory by the Pope, Leo XIII, whilst in Rome. He received many more honours and decorations from the crowned heads of Europe. He was dubbed the heir to Paganini during his 1902 tour of the United States. Society girls deluged him with offers of marriage. Within a few years, he amassed $500,000 from his American concerts, a massive sum at that time. Then in 1903, he married the Countess Anna Julie Marie-Zell von Bersenio, who was born on the 1st of March 1880 in Budapest, the niece of the former Prime Minister of Hungary, Kálmán Széll, and Jan Kubelik had 8 children with Anna Julie. Five violinist daughters and 3 sons, among them conductor Raphael Kubelik. And so Jan Kubelik became a citizen of Hungary. His piano accompanist in his early American concerts was Rudolf Frimmel, later to become famous for his delectable operettas. Germany, with its more conservative and sober musical standards, was less receptive than America was to Kubelik. Apparently, according to one critic at the time, Kubelik's harmonics were flawless. This critic, however, did also state that Kubelik lacked the exotic charm of Sarasate, Olibol and Remenyi. And this critic was the American Henry Fink, writing in 1909, who stated that as an artist, Kubelik was inferior to Kreisler, Kneissl and Maud Powell. The same critic felt that when Kubelik returned to America 4 years later, he had made significant artistic progress. He now gave pleasure to those who expect a violinist to do more than just dazzle them. Henry Roth, however, does seem to appreciate him from a purely technical point of view, and from the point of view of his technical abilities on the violin, but also agrees that he somewhat lacked musicality. In London in the early 1900s, Kubelik led a quartet which included the cellist Paul Grumer. Kubelik retired from the concert stage in 1915, ostensibly to devote more time to composition, but he was never really truly successful as a composer. He tried to make it come back to the concert stage in 1921 and made his final comeback appearances in 1935, but his playing no longer produced the excited response of his earlier years. Apparently, he once tore down a poster of Paderewski at a Chicago hotel, so he was not immune from professional jealousy. Henry Roth describes him as a technician of honourable and thorough integrity, but states that his stylistic inclinations were a little too rooted in the past. And Carl Flesch mentions that his playing started to deteriorate even before he was 30 years old. Roth states that by 1925, Kubelik could be likened to a Cro-Magnon artist. He died in 1940. Let's now talk about Kubelik's recordings. Kubelik was among the first to make recordings, perhaps as early as 1902, beginning with gramophone and typewriter. He made a number of recordings. His acoustic recordings were made for the Gramophone and Typewriter Company Limited, the Victor Talking Machine Company, Phonotypia Odeon and Schallplatte Grammophon Polydor. His 1935 Carnegie Hall concert was also recorded and has been reissued. He left 60 recordings of pieces, some possibly made as early as 1906 in Milan for Phonotypia, or maybe even as early as 1902, but not many made later than 1915. I have a Masters of the Bow LP of Kubelik. A comparison of his recording of Zapateado by Sarasate and La Ronde des Lutins by Bazzini with the same pieces first recorded by the young Heifetz shows the extent of the revolution that had taken place within 10 to 12 years. Kubelik's rendition suffers from tasteless slides and slender tone, to quote from Henry Roth. He composed the cadenzas himself for the Paganini Concerto No. 1 that he recorded. The Strad magazine recommends the following recordings: Bazzini, Wieniawski et al. By Testament, the Great Violinists; Paganini, Wieniawski, Kubelik et al. Symposium; Vieuxtemps, Wieniawski, Sarasate, Jan Kubelik Society; Derdler, Fabich, Dvorak, Suk et al. Jan Kubelik Society. Acoustic recordings 1902, downloads from Contra Classics. Kubelik was also a composer. He wrote music including 6 violin concertos, but these are not much played today. He continued to perform in public until his death, with a pause between the end of World War I and 1920, during which period he composed. In 1920 he resumed his concert career. In 1917 he was elected as an honorary member of Phi Mu Alpha Symphonia Music Fraternity by the fraternity's Alpha chapter at the New England Conservatory in Boston. Jan Kubelik died in Prague in 1940 at the age of 60. The Strad magazine lists Kubelik's strengths and weaknesses. For his strengths, it mentions that he excelled in spiccato, octaves, harmonics, tremolos, and left-hand pizzicatos. Those Sevcik studies must have really helped his technique. That he had exceptional rhythmic control, which helped him to avoid rushing ahead of the beat, even in the most virtuosic passages. That he was a master of the mezza voce and messa di voce, 2 more traits displaying his awareness of singing technique. His tonal contrasts could be exquisite. His judgment of rubato, spot on. As for the weaknesses, Strad magazine mentions that his style could seem cool to those with the sounds of newer virtuosi ringing in their ears, and that, like most players of his day, he declined slightly in his 50s. Let's come on to the violins of Jan Kubelik. He owned some amazing instruments. He played on a Guarneri del Gesù, but also owned some Stradivarius violins and acquired the 1715 Emperor Stradivarius in 1910. His 1735 Guarneri del Gesù was later played by Kyunghwa Chung. Apparently, according to the Strad magazine, he also came into possession of the Allard of 1715, although I'm not seeing that in the provenance of the instrument on Taurusio. He had an Albert Nürnberger bow. In conclusion, although Jan Kubelik's star faded a little and he never made it really as a composer, the Czech fiddler remained at the top of his profession for 4 decades. He practiced up to 12 hours a day, slowly, patiently and accurately according to Boris Schwartz, and sometimes until his fingers bled. In the process he acquired a brilliant and reliable, though somewhat brittle technique, which he modified in later years as he played more of the classical repertoire. He is very closely associated with the music of Paganini and is thought of as an heir to Paganini. One of the eminent violin virtuosi of the early 20th century, Kubelik's technique was sometimes referred to as a product of Ševčík's rigorous training methods. Kubelik has an equivocal place in violin history. He is acknowledged as a key figure in advancing technique, showing how cleanly and precisely the violin could be played, and stressing that runs and scales should be practiced slowly and brought up to speed only when the notes are thoroughly and evenly mastered, though this precept came from his teacher Ševčík.